When India gained independence in 1947, millions of people celebrated freedom, but not everyone found peace in this new nation. Among the untold stories of struggle is the tragic Marichjhapi Massacre of 1979, an event that many do not know about. It is a story of broken promises, betrayal, and the terrible suffering of poor refugees who were abandoned by the government. During the partition of India, millions of people were forced to leave their homes. Many Hindus from East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, fled to India, especially to West Bengal. Most of these refugees were from the Namasudra community, a lower caste. But when they arrived in India, they were not treated well. The government sent them far away to a dry, barren land in central India called Dandakaranya. There was no proper food, no water, no work. Life was hard, and these refugees felt abandoned. In 1977, the Communist Party of India, Marxist, CPIM, came to power in West Bengal. Led by Jyoti Basu, they promised to bring these refugees back to Bengal. Believing this promise, many refugees left Dandakaranya and moved to Marichjhapi, a small island in the Sundarbans, hoping for a better life. They built homes, started farming, and believed they would be supported. But after coming to power, the government changed its stance. The CPIM declared that the refugees in Marichjhapi were illegal settlers because the island was part of an ecologically sensitive zone. They claimed the Sundarbans needed protection from human settlement. This was just an excuse. The real reason was political. The government feared that if they allowed these refugees to settle, many more would come, and this could create problems for the state. Also, many of these refugees were lower caste, and even though the CPIM claimed to support the poor, the caste divide likely influenced their decision. In January 1979, the government ordered the refugees to leave Marichjhapi. When they refused, the government imposed a blockade. The police cut off food, water, and medical supplies to the island. The refugees were trapped, with nothing to survive on. As the blockade continued, the refugees grew weak from hunger and disease, but they still did not leave. In May 1979, the government decided to take harsh action. Armed police forces attacked the island. They fired on unarmed refugees, men, women, and children. Many tried to flee by jumping into the water only to drown. Others were shot, beaten, or killed. Some women were even raped, according to survivor accounts. The exact number of people who died is not known, but it is believed that hundreds lost their lives that day. Bodies were reportedly thrown into rivers to hide the truth. The government quickly covered up the massacre, and very few reports made it to the public. At the time, Jyoti Basu was the chief minister of West Bengal. Even though his party had once promised to help these refugees, he allowed the massacre to happen. The official reason was protecting the environment, but in reality, it was about power and politics. The Dandakaranya region in central India became a primary destination for resettling these refugees. Other national leaders like Indira Gandhi, who had been prime minister and was still a major political figure, did not intervene. They saw it as a state issue and stayed silent. The poor lower caste refugees had no one to fight for them. Their suffering was ignored by the very people who had once claimed to support them. For years, the Marichjhapi massacre remained hidden. Few people outside the region knew what had happened. The government controlled the media, and survivors were too scared or too weak to raise their voices. However, some efforts have been made to uncover the truth. Amitav Ghosh, a famous Indian author, brought attention to Marichjhapi in his novel, The Hungry Tide. While it is a work of fiction, the book is based on the real events of the massacre. Dr. Anu Jalais, a researcher, has also written about Marichjhapi and collected evidence from survivors. Her work helped bring the truth to light. The Marichjhapi massacre was forgotten because it exposed the hypocrisy of the Communist Party, which claimed to support the poor. Many intellectuals and media outlets in Bengal supported the CPIM and remained silent about the massacre to protect the party's image. The victims were mostly from a poor, lower caste background, and they had no powerful allies to speak for them. The government made sure the massacre remained buried in history. To this day, many people in India do not know about this tragedy. The story of Marichjhapi is a painful reminder of how easily the poor and vulnerable can be abandoned by those in power. These refugees fled religious persecution, seeking safety in their own country. only to face violence and betrayal. The massacre of Marichjhapi shows us that even after independence, not all Indians were free. Some continued to struggle, their lives caught between political games and broken promises. Even today, the Marichjhapi Massacre is not widely known, but the truth is out there, in the voices of survivors and the efforts of writers and researchers. Their story deserves to be heard.